So what you have here is a power supply. This particular power supply is slightly expensive. It might be a $200-300 power supply, but you can obtain similar kinds of power supplies for less, maybe for $50 from, say, Fry's Electronics. This particular power supply has 3 output terminals, this pair and 2 additional pairs down here. We will not be using the outputs in the center. These are constant voltage output, and instead we will learn how to use the variable voltage outputs to the right. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the power supply so that you see the display. It has 2 displays. It tells you the voltage output on the variable output terminals, and it also tells you how much current is currently going through the outputs. Nothing is connected to the output, so the current output is 0 at this moment. There are 2 dials that control the voltage output. The one on top is used to adjust the voltage. So as you can see, I can crank it down to 1.5 volt. This is equivalent to, say, a AAA battery. And I can crank it up to a much higher voltage. Let's go up to 12.5 volts. This is what you would expect from a car battery. It is very, very important to make sure that you're outputting the proper voltage for the project you have. For us, that is 5 volts. The microcontroller we will be using requires 5 volts. So I'm going to go ahead and crank this down to 5.0. As you can see, I'm trying to get as close as possible. But if you're close to 5 within 0.2 volts, you're in good shape. Just make sure you're not above 5.2 or below 4.8. In this case, 4.9 will be sufficient. The second dial, the current dial, is a way of adjusting how much output this unit would support, current output. We're going to limit the output to 200 milliamps, so 0.2 amps. And the way I do it is by shorting out. First, I turn the dial all the way down to 0 so that the red light comes on. I will short the output, and I will start turning the dial until I read 0.2 or 200 milliamp. As you can see, when I remove the short, the voltage goes back up to 4.9 and the current goes to 0. When I short the output, the voltage goes down to 0 and the current jumps up to 200 milliamp. What that's telling me is that the power supply is constantly monitoring the amount of current going through the system, and if the current goes above the set value, it drops the voltage to limit that current. This is a safety mechanism. It makes sure that if you short your circuit or if you have miswired the connections, the unit does not allow more current to flow through the system and possibly damage the chips. If you set this to 0.2 amps, you'll ensure that you don't damage anything, but at the same time you do produce enough current to drive the LED and the microcontroller.